Welcome back to my mini series, My Diet Journey from a Biblical Perspective. So today is part one of our mini series, and it is what is the difference between vegan and vegetarian and plant-based? So let's dive right into it. There are some similarities, and I'll explain those, but I think understanding the definitions will help you really grasp it. And I know with so many of the different substitutes out there, you might be thinking, well, what makes one better than the other? All right, let's begin. So, vegan. A person who's vegan will not eat anything that comes from an animal, not even its byproducts like eggs or dairy. And I would say they also go as far as maybe not eating honey as well. And now that is a debate between vegans, but that's an example. I would say they are okay with eating processed vegan food like the Impossible Burger, the Beyond Meat. Those are examples of vegan foods that are out there, but are more processed. So this kind of we'll discuss it later, but this does go into the similarities and crossovers in the three different vocabulary words that we're kind of covering. So the second one is plant-based. Now, someone who is plant-based generally eats things that are derived from plants, and they lessen their processed vegan foods. So meaning like they most likely won't eat like an Impossible Burger because they would rather have like a black bean burger that comes directly from a plant and not something that is maybe termed for them processed or more processed than a black bean burger. And most likely they'll make it at home. They'll use like quinoa or flour or whatever it is to bind it all together, but it's more derived from plants than an Impossible Burger, which is more processed. So that is where the difference may lie. A vegetarian is someone who is willing to not eat the animals at all, but will eat the byproducts of an animal, such as milk, cheese, eggs, honey. However, there are subgroups within the vegetarian umbrella. So you would have things like a pescatarian who would eat fish but won't eat cows or any other meats, but they're okay with fish. So that's a pescatarian. And then you've got people who are what I call lactotarians, I guess. That's kind of my coinage, because lacto-ovo-vegetarian is like the actual definition of them, and that means that they're willing to eat like cheese and egg and dairy. That's what they'll consume, but they won't consume the actual meat, if that makes sense. So there are just so many variations within the vegetarian umbrella. Like, I'm not going to get into it, but I'm sure you get the gist. So the thing is, you can be vegan and plant-based but not vegetarian. And so there's that similarity is what I mean. So a person, you can call yourself, like if you're more plant-based, you don't eat, say, a lot of the processed foods that you get at the store, and you mainly eat plants, you'd say, well, I'm plant-based, or you can actually call yourself a vegan because you don't eat any animals. So you can cross over or intermingle those definitions for yourself if you feel, the need to. And in regards to these definitions, I think it really depends on your lifestyle. So I know there are some people who go for months on end without eating like fish, for example, but they don't really consider themselves pescatarian because they eat it maybe like once in a blue moon. Like, it really depends on how you want to define yourself and what best fits like your lifestyle. So I'm not saying you have to identify between these groups. Now, the whole goal, though, of a vegan, vegetarian, and a plant-based, I would say, lifestyle change is to consume more nutrient-dense foods overall. And that's really where the emphasis lies, is it's fairly plant derived versus not plant derived, right? So even though they may have their nuances of differences, one eating less processed vegan food, one having, you know, meat derived once in a while, whenever they have access to it or whatever it may be, or one who just clearly eats, you know, processed vegan. I mean, Oreo cookies are vegan, you know, like you can still say you're vegan even though you're eating Oreo cookies and chips and whatnot, but it's not healthy. So what I'm saying is, like, all of the goal, though, the emphasis of it is to lessen the consumption of meat and to emphasize a consumption of healthier products that are, quote, vegetarian, plant-based, vegan, right? So with that, my emphasis is your lifestyle is a choice. You have a choice as to what you want to end up doing, and I think many of the, I don't want to say propaganda, but it really kind of is to a degree, of the media kind of pushes like a very ugly view of vegans and vegetarians. And it makes me sad because actually there's a lot of amazing good vegetarian food out there that we eat and it's delicious. And unfortunately, there is still kind of a stigma, I think, surrounding what healthy looks like, when actually healthy is very simple. So with that, I just an encouragement is in Romans 14:5. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. Now I know I'm taking this a little bit out of context if you actually read where this is in the Bible, but I think the principle still stands true, even though this isn't referring to food choices. I think this is with everything in life, that it is a choice. And when you think about this from a biblical perspective, if you're like wanting to look into like, were there people in the Bible who were vegan? Well, yes, actually Daniel, in the book of Daniel, Daniel was the first one who ever did a, I would say, a real scientific case study. And he ended up going vegan along with his 3 friends. And then there's Jesus. He is not vegan. He was pescatarian from what we know. It doesn't tell us that he ate, you know, animal products other than fish. That's the only one that we're aware of that's been recorded. So then you look at the Jews in the wilderness after they came out of Egypt. They were vegan up until they demanded for quail, and then they got sick off of the quail. And then you look at the kosher laws. Well, the kosher laws allow for meat consumption, so obviously they're not vegan. So when you look at it from a biblical perspective, there is a spectrum that we see, and there is a difference, which leads me into the next video that we'll be talking about, which is there a difference between meats? Yes, there is, and I will be discussing that then. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this, and I hope that really gave you a better perspective and understanding of what a vegan, vegetarian, and plant-based, you know, lifestyle looks like, and maybe looking at where you kind of land on the spectrum. But again, there's no judgment as to which one I think is superior per se, but I would say it really depends on your lifestyle. It depends on what you have access to, and it also depends on your own personal convictions. So I hope that it encourages you nonetheless to consider living a full lifestyle that really embraces a much more healthy, plant-based life. All right, well, you guys take care. Have a wonderful day. May you live, thrive, and be healthy. Take care, guys. See you again. Bye.